Trump has been found guilty of a serious crime. And the question whether Donald Trump should be allowed to stand for election or should be chosen by the Republicans as their candidate touches both on legal and moral considerations. And I think it's worth being very naughty and comparing the Trump issue with that of Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson being found to have broken the rules for COVID. And it's a nuanced analysis of the nature and context of their respective actions. Let's go into it. In the US, there's no constitutional provision that explicitly bars a convicted felon, like Trump, from running for or holding the office of the president, in the same way as there isn't any constitutional provision that stopped Doctor Who from running to be president of Gallifrey. The Constitution in America sets out only 3 qualifications: being a natural-born citizen, at least 35 years old, so a little bit older than a Catholic priest, and a resident of the United States for 14 years. However, there are specific convictions that could potentially lead to disqualification under other laws, such as those pertaining to insurrection or rebellion, the 14th Amendment, Section 3, and that, of course, is also under discussion. But it would be subject to interpretation and to legal challenges. Now, in the UK, the legal framework for disqualification from public office is much more stringent for certain types of offences. For example, individuals convicted of electoral fraud or there are certain other criminal offences can be barred from standing for election. But both Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson have faced controversies, convictions, effectively, and accusations. But it doesn't quite disqualify them from holding office under UK law. So we've actually got, for the first time, a situation where in Britain we have a Prime Minister who has broken the law, and in America we are poised to see a Prime Minister, a President who has broken the law. Now, if you look at this not from a legal position but from a moral position, the moral position becomes much more interesting. For example, a conviction for financial crimes, obstruction of justice, or serious offences like that raises moral concerns about President Trump's fitness for office and responsibility for that whole paradigm of justice and proper behaviour. The same thing is surely true of Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson. The moral implications of their actions relate to ethical conduct, to the adherence of the public standards of behaviour rather than criminal behaviour. Boris Johnson was fined for breaching COVID-19 lockdown regulations, as was Rishi Sunak. It's a breach of public trust. It may not be a serious criminal offence, but it is a breach of public trust. And this is about ethical standards and our confidence in those people that we have elected to represent us, not only nationally in Parliament, but also internationally. They are our representative abroad. They are the best of Britain, the best of the United States. Do you really think that Trump is the best that the United States can come up with? Do you really think that Boris Johnson, having been convicted of breaching the COVID rules he made, that Rishi Sunak, in the same situation, are the best that we can come up with? I think the moral debate is about their judgment, their adherence to the ethical standards that they are in charge of keeping. And it's about one rule for us, another rule for them. And you see the same thing with the behaviour of people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, talking so dismissively about Europe and yet having a business in Dublin. And I think Trump's thing undermines the moral and legal standing of his office in a way that, frankly, I think The Sunak and Johnson thing does too, but not perhaps to, perhaps we can overlook it the once, perhaps we can explain it. But what we've done with Rishi Sunak is we've quietly forgotten it. We've quietly ignored it, rather like Sunak wants us to ignore Brexit. Oh yes, if we look around to see who is responsible for the problems that we've got today, it's Putin or the Israeli war or the cost of living crisis. It's never Brexit, is it? And yet Brexit was what Boris wanted. Get Brexit done! Blah! And I think that a convict in high office damages public trust in other democratic institutions, and it gives criminals a sense of opportunity. I think it's imperative that in future we disqualify people who have fouled up to such an extent while they are in office or after they have left office. The act of being in office, so they might be able to get into office, they might be able to make a case and say, oh look, I'm so sorry, I did something wrong when I was younger. As David Cameron said, youth can explain many things, and people should not be constrained by their distant past. But when they are in office, after they have been in office, they are expected to have upheld those principles and to continue to uphold those principles. And if they can't, they shouldn't be in office again, should they? And I don't think it's about specifically our legal framework. I think it's about our sense of moral duty. And if these people do not have the moral rectitude to stand aside, to get on with some charity work or something, like Profumo, then they need to be compelled to stand aside. And we should not see them in public office again. Now, I'm saying this with the understanding that I have a soft spot for Rishi Sunak. I always have. I've given him the benefit of the doubt again and again and again, because I think that his heart is in the right place, but his head is not. And I think I've been waylaid. I think I have been deceived. And why? Because the man can't keep his own rules. And if somebody can't keep the rules that they set in cabinet, they should be out on their ear, shouldn't they? I'd love to know your opinion of this, because I think it's a much bigger issue. I think somebody who is reprimanded and who is made to leave Parliament for a short period of time, yes, of course they should be recalled. That's the whole principle of these ideas. These are not people who are worthy to be our representative. Get them out. They can do something else of value to our society. Maybe they can make amends. They can apologize. They can spend the rest of their life crawling around in sackcloth. I don't care. I don't think they should be representing us.